all, welcome to SHOWstudio. This morning we're going to be discussing Cotweiler Autumn into 18. Very exciting first panel of London menswear and first panel in this crazy new setup that we're all testing for the first time. So I'll let my lovely panelists introduce themselves. Illyr, if you want to start with yourself.
My name's illyr. I'm a choreographer, a musician, a dancer, producer electronic music.
So my name's Ben Freeman. I'm the creative director of Ditto, which is a publishing company based in London.
I'm Rob Nowill, and I'm a writer and consultant.
I'm Joshua Brinksman, and I'm menswear buyer at matchesfashion.com.
Awesome. So amazing panel. Thank you guys all for coming in on a Sunday morning. I know it's a bit of a stretch. So let's dive straight in. We had this topic about the Cotweiler boy, and I use the word boy because I'm interested in who's buying Cotweiler, who's their kind of market, because they have this blanket of sportswear, which I don't always like to discuss, to give Cotweiler, because I think there's so much more than that. But they don't have this typical sportswear boy. They're not your average sportswear buyer. So who do we kind of envision as this Cotweiler boy, their target market? Josh, I'm going to you first.
I mean, I don't know, coming back to that, for me, with Cotweiler, it's all about this kind of uniform. And I think I like what you were saying about it's not the conventional sportswear boy, but I think they've kind of, because they've been doing it for so long, it's like true to their DNA, and like that is them. And I'm always intrigued to think that like in maybe 15 years' time, is that what the kids are going to be going to? They're going to be rediscovering Cotweiler as like the originator of that tracksuit, of that look that obviously we're now seeing in the market. Everyone just revisiting old sportswear brands, and we're just seeing constant collaborations. But I feel like they're just kind of setting this tone where kids will just be able to come into it and they'll be like, that's the definition of like this tracksuit, like the tracksuit of the future in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still trying to kind of figure out who that Cotweiler customer is. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Because I don't think it's the same as like the fanboys of Supreme or the Nazir or the Astrid Anderson followers. It's this kind of knowledge. I feel like the Cotweiler boy has a knowledge of this Savile Row tailoring that perhaps the Liam Hodges fanboy wouldn't know about. And what do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I always think that it's more sophisticated than,
Definitely,
as you say, like a Palace or a Supreme or a kind of hypebeastie type brand. But I don't know whether that's just because we know their backgrounds and the kind of people they collaborate with, and as you say, they had Savile Row training. I don't know whether that is apparent in the product itself, whether we just put that on it, but I always think of it as being slightly more of a designed brand than maybe a Astrid or a Liam Hodges is, which just seems quite like merchandisey to me. Mm-hmm. But I think that comes from kind of the kind of depth of their references and the fact that actually their collections are quite intelligent on a lot of levels once you start unpacking them, and there's quite a sophistication in terms of their thought process, I think. I think that's what makes it more than just a load of nylon tracksuits.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But do you think the buyer is looking at the nylon tracksuit and knowing all these incredible references, or do you think they are a boy who's walking into the store and being like, that's a goddamn good-looking tracksuit, I want that?
Well, I think the best kinds of brands are when it's both of that, isn't it? Like, you or I or any of us could sit and talk about how, these clever things that they're doing and the kind of semiotics of the clothes. But equally, a guy who's just got a bit of money to spend might walk into Matches and say, that's a really nice tracksuit jacket. Like, it'll look nice with my jeans. Like,
so they kind of got the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I think that's the really hard bit to crack is like, can you make something that's clever and that's moving things forward, but equally it's just a nice piece of product? And I think sometimes designers trip over themselves when they try and be too clever and lose sight of like, actually, sometimes you just want a t-shirt. It doesn't need to be any more like sophisticated and clever than that.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you, because I know you wear Cotweiler quite a lot, and you definitely have a very good Cotweiler aesthetic, I would say.
I actually wore a Cotweiler tracksuit to my mum's wedding.
Did you?
How did that go down?
I had to give her away, and she was like, I want you to wear something smart, and I was like, I haven't worn a suit forever. So it was really nicely tailored, so I thought it would be acceptable.
That's like incredibly telling in the fact that your mum said to you, wear something smart, and you picked a Cotweiler tracksuit. I think that's testament to how incredible, I love Cotweiler, in case of disclaimer, I love Cotweiler, how amazing their tracksuits are, because it's a tracksuit, but you still feel like it was like the cut and the concept behind it is so intelligent that you can wear it to a wedding.
I don't think it, yeah, because I don't think it is sportswear for
I'm
me.
putting words in your mouth that he didn't think all of that.
I really like uniformity in terms of image, and it's like weird kind of obsession with like SS uniforms from Nazi Germany, and I think what's clever about Cotweiler, it kind of has that sort of uniformity to it when you see it, and it's like plain enough for you to project your own identity onto it. There's not like big brand like Thrasher or like Palace like across it. So for me, I use it in my work a lot because I find I can project what I want artistically onto this blank canvas that is has hints of fetishization and sportswear, but also like slick uniformity. Makes sense?
Does make sense.
Cool.
I think that fetish thing is the other thing that makes it really interesting, because it's kind of there, but you don't necessarily know it's there unless you're looking for it. Like, I think you could wear just a Cotweiler track jacket and walk down the street and people aren't going to be like, oh, he's wearing a gimp suit.
Bit racy.
Like, it doesn't give anything away that's like that obvious, but then it's under the surface if you want to find it, which I think is really clever.
That's the bit. I think that if you didn't know the history of the brand, it wouldn't. By now, I don't think it would be evident. So I think that's where. I mean, I was just going to say on the whole kind of identity of Cotweiler and how they're different from Palace and Supreme, and that, like they're not playing that communications game at all.
Yeah.
You know, they're not kind of social media whores, and they're not. You know, they're not. Even though I think there's a definite overlap in their audience, it's just I think you have to have known the brand for a while to get those associations. I don't think you'd look at this latest season and get anything about fetish at all, really.
No.
I think the sexuality is a really big part of it, but I think it's been developing for a while.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we never really discuss it that explicitly in terms of what it's about in terms of sex and like fetish. But yeah, everybody knows that it's there. And once you look for it, like even in this one, like those hands covered in slime.
KY jelly.
I mean, yeah.
It's very telling.
It's quite lewdy, like, you might sort of see it, but that's been, if you ask them, they'll say that it's something completely different. They were saying it was about, like, primordial, like, slime from the bottom of the caves or whatever.
Sure.
You're like,
Yeah,
Is it just our little sick minds getting
that's what I
involved?
think is interesting, is it makes you feel like a bit of a pervert when you're looking at it.
I didn't get that association.
I think that's what, like last season when they had the really low kind of showing, that was a bit of a, sorry about that gesture, like they had the low V's from, and that's kind of like this subtle nod to a little bit of sex, a little bit of, but again you would just be like, oh, they're like hip slingers, like it's just because it's summer and you know it's hot or whatever, but then you look at it and you're like, actually hang on a second, that's...
The little shorts?
Yeah, they were really low and with the lovely little diamond lizards last season.
Yeah.
Like all that kind of stuff is just this kind of, like you were saying, this kind of really subtle, if you know, kind of wink, basically.
Yeah.
I always think that Cotweiler is genuinely sexy.
Yeah.
Not Versace sexy, but I mean for last night's show, the most recent collection, I definitely was like, this looks sexy to me.
Yeah.
But it's a different kind of sexiness, isn't it? It's like a kind of grubby sexy.
Grubby sexy.
Like it's kind of
It's
like,
rough sex, sort
it's
of
rough
more,
sex.
yeah.
Like you don't feel like the Versace or Dolce guy is going to be a good shag because it's like tight speedos and like a shaved
what you
chest.
I
like,
feel like they're
guess.
compensating for something a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, and it feels really kind of early noughties, hunks and trunks kind of thing. Whereas Cotweiler, there's something a bit more seedy about it.
I think that's quite a British thing as well.
Yeah,
I mean, like in France, there's the whole sort of kiffer thing as well, which is a similar thing. But I don't think that exists in every culture. I think it's quite because of our class system. I think as well, we have a very distinct class system, and we don't realise how much of a big deal it is. And this definitely comes from that. I know that they try and avoid that, and I know that they don't try and sort of capitalise on the whole sort of working class thing. But it's definitely a part of that sexual dynamic. I think.
I quite like in the showroom, I think for the last few seasons that I've been buying it, they've got this one lad that they use as a model in the showroom, but he is your typical kid who's from up north, kind of going to spoons, and he just looks, he's a bigger frame than like any of the models on the runway, but it works on him, and you're kind of buying into that then. It's like, oh, he looks mint.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I love that it's got that diversity to cross over to those guys, those kind of bigger lads up north, to then skinny kids in London who just want to rock it because they're into it. And yeah, it's nice.
There's also the thing that up north, I think there's a thing that with northern fashion, there's no, it's not paradoxical to be that kind of person and to like spending good money on nice clothes, whereas down here it probably is a bit, it's a bit more disjointed.
Yeah.
Do you think part of the appeal is that they're, one of them is from up north, one of them is from south, so they're kind of covering this basis because they're bringing in all these different references from their different upbringings?
I think the difference in their backgrounds is really interesting in terms of, I think as well because one is straight and one's gay, which maybe is really reductive, but like, you know, one of them is kind of slightly fetishizing this kind of like this masculinity, and one is just that kind of masculinity.
Yeah.
That's a really weird tension, and I think that's really evident in the collections. Like half of it, I mean, as we just said, like you can just wear the tracksuit to be a bloke in a tracksuit, or you can wear the tracksuit because you're the kind of guy who fancies guys who wear tracksuits.
I feel there's like a sensitivity to the masculinity though. It doesn't feel masculine or like abrasive, like or toxic. It just feels kind of like subtle and beautiful. And
yeah, it's not like let's.
Yeah.
I think also kind of Nicholas's involvement with the art direction and the styling. Like, when I met him before, I don't know, I met him in a different showroom. He was doing something for Anders Howe, but we just had this like intense like hour conversation about kind of Gabba and Gabba tracksuits, and he just revealed this kind of whole new realm that I'd never seen, like listing Gabba tracksuit brands that I'd never heard of. I just think his input as well is, I mean, them as a three it's so tight.
Just a meeting of amazing minds, really, isn't it?
Definitely.
They're also I'm interested in, because you've worked with them in 2014.
I think so, yeah.
For their book. I'm interested to see how you've seen it progress.
We actually didn't work with them on the book. They, what happened was we opened a gallery and I had somebody working with me called Henry, he's a DJ called Endgame, and he absolutely loved Cotweiler, and up till that point, I mean, I've always liked clothes a lot, you know, kind of obsessive about subculture, but I had a thing against sort of fashion with a capital F. And this was my kind of gateway into actually finding stuff interesting again, you know, sort of what, I don't know if this is high fashion, but, you know, definitely fashion.
Yeah.
And we didn't, they'd already produced the book Furs Ground, and we basically gave them a corner of the gallery to make an installation, and they made this really beautiful little kind of jacket with lights and photography, and it just kind of ticked a lot of boxes of things I found. I found it very sort of artful as well, you know, it was fashion with a very, like, I don't know how to say this in a sophisticated way, but it seemed like art, and that was really appealing. It was art that also, I really loved the clothes, and they were things that I could imagine wearing, and it also lived in this world that I found a bit impenetrable up till then. So yeah, it just, I guess that was at the same time as Liam was getting big as well, and you know, they were doing stuff with Primitive, and it just sort of introduced me to all of this world that I found really, really interesting and engaging.
Yeah. And having watched the show last night, how do you feel?
It's evolved. I mean, I think I've seen pretty much every show except for the last one because I was in hospital, not because I didn't want to go. just say that. But it's definitely evolved, and I think that there's probably a sort of, obviously you can't stay the same. They've been doing this for a while, and I really enjoyed the show yesterday. I enjoy the fact that I'm not a huge fan of runway shows in general. I don't like the fact that I was sort of sitting on a corner and they sort of flashed past me for like half a second. Yeah. And I felt like when they used to do presentations, there was more, like I loved their presentations. I thought they were incredibly beautiful. And that was kind of part of what I was saying about the art of it, is it felt like an art installation. And this, I think I preferred this to some of their other runway shows in terms of the atmosphere, but it still felt like I'd have liked to have been able to sort of immerse myself in it for a while. You know? But yeah, I like the clothes a lot.
Yeah, I do agree actually. I think we were saying this earlier that it was quite fast-paced and quite dark last night, so it was quite difficult to see everything, and I guess particularly with Cotweiler and particularly with some of the materials they had, you really want to like zoom in and get a little... Yeah. So I almost wonder, particularly with all this like rock referencing they had, whether it would have been better as a presentation.
I don't know. I don't know the reason for choosing to... I don't know why they chose to do it.
Thing, because I think there's an expectation that you get to a certain level and then you do a show, because you're a proper designer. Yeah. Whereas... very much an inverted commas.
Just certain clout, doesn't it?
Yeah, and people take you seriously, and you know, I think it's sadly buyers and press often think if it's presentation they can probably swerve it, and you know, or I'll get there but I won't. And then if, it's funny with some designers who have gone to runway shows and then gone back to presentations, it's always seen as a bit of a step back, like, oh, he must be in trouble, like, he must have run out of money, like, whatever. Which I think is really sad, because actually, I mean, I think I said this last season when we were here, but like, with someone like Grace Wells Bonner as well, her presentations used to be extraordinary.
Yeah.
And then her show is just kind of another load of people walking in a line.
Yeah.
So you kind of lose all that like emotion and all that kind of...
Her V&A show, Fashion in Motion thing, was around the same time as some of the, and that was like a really great moment for, the presentations felt really beautiful. And so I felt like, I totally agree. It feels like a step backwards to go back to presentations, but maybe, I don't know, if people started to do presentations and runway shows, that would be great, because they answer two different things. I totally get why people need to sort of progress to doing runway things, but it doesn't give them the opportunity to show things always in their best light, really.
Yeah, I mean, especially in a show, I thought the show last night was great in terms of atmosphere, but it was so frenetic and so fast-paced and so, like, as you say, they just went like that, and you were like, is that a trouser? Was that a short? Was that a coat? Like, what
Was he naked?
And especially when there was so much kind of subtle cleverness in terms of kind of styling tics and
yeah, the styling was amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, let's talk about the show. Let's go through the show, because illyr, you need to have a little look for the first time, which is great, because then we get your first-hand opinion on your first look. So just to set the scene a little bit, it was at the Natural History Museum, and they had all these references to kind of rocks and caving and kind of like, not abseiling, that's not quite the right word, but like potholing, thank you, and like diving down in caves, looking for all these, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, stalagmite, rocks. And all these beautiful kind of gemstones, and they took you through this whole thing, walking down to where you'd be sat, where there was all these amazing setups, kind of excavating gems and pink hazy lights, and it was really beautifully thought out. So actually, in that sense, maybe that was kind of their presentation section, now that I'm waffling on. So let's look at the clothes and see what everyone thought. Oh, and they collaborated with Mulberry. What does everyone think about that?
I thought it was a really interesting move. Their kind of partnership with Reebok has come to an end.
Yeah.
And they didn't really do a sneaker this time, which I thought was really interesting.
It's great.
Which we were talking about it last night, weren't we? And saying it was a really kind of clever move forward, because it's so easy to get pigeonholed as being just a sportswear designer. And actually, I thought one thing that was really interesting about this collection and the show and the styling was that it was kind of diversifying what they do a bit. Like, there was leather for the first time, and there was more silk for the first time, and they did a shoe for the first time, and the Mulberry collaboration, which is obviously a brand we think of as being a bit stodgy, but definitely a luxury brand. So I thought it was a really interesting way of kind of separating themselves from a lot of the other people who are still in London.
But were they moccasins or loafers? That's what we need.
What was the name that you came up with? You had it nailed earlier.
Sort of Dalstonist Nigerian loafer.
It's quite that.
Something like that.
It was great.
Yeah, they were really good.
Those crusted shoes are amazing.
Well, they were trainers.
Yeah.
Really, but trainers with stalactites. Stalactite embellishments.
Yeah.
They were really nice.
As you do.
Yeah.
With that Mulberry bag, it's not a collab, right, as you were saying, or?
It's they're going to, I think, do a collab.
But so that won't be produced, though?
This one won't be produced. They customise some existing bags, I think, just to kind of...
I think I quite like that ad hoc thing of them like, all right, we'll just destroy a Mulberry bag and see what happens. And I think, I would kind of want that to be produced. It's a bit like GmbH last season, so those Helly Hansen jackets, they just cut up old Helly Hansen duffel bags, stitched it together. Helly Hansen were then on the cusp of like, oh, do we sue them? Or do we follow through with this? And then they ended up like producing it. So it's like, I think brands like Mulberry should kind of take advantage of that. And especially these shapes. These are shapes that we were seeing like, I don't know, 10 years ago, just like, which were the epitome of luxury. And then now it's been reintroduced within this. And it's just like, it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing to not see a crossbody, which in fact Cotweiler were doing, I don't know how many seasons ago. Yeah. So they are ahead of the game on this one. So it was really strong.
I think the Mulberry kind of introduces this element of luxe that's just a bit of a reminder about how luxe they actually are. I think just because they have a cuffed ankle, a lot of the time people just throw away this kind of sportswear, streetswear name terminology, and having this like super luxurious mulberry bag with a Cotweiler twist almost says like, hey, just a little reminder, we're super luxe. Like, don't forget how luxe we are. Like, this may be attractive.
On the flip side, though, the question is whether it could be a bit alienating to. I mean, it sort of goes back to the first question of who their guy is, because you know this collection felt like it's going to be, I imagine, a lot more expensive than any other they've done, because there's so much laser cutting and leather and silk and all this other stuff. And actually, is the guy who loves this kind of product, is he going to have the money to buy a mulberry bag? Or
guys have money now, though, don't they?
Well,
because of Depop, they're like killing it, making fortunes. They probably can afford it.
Yeah.
I think it's either the sort of higher end customer who has the money, or it's kids who now mysteriously do also have the money.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
They'll find a way to get that money.
But I guess even aside from the money as well, it's like, do they have the aspiration to buy an expensive bag anymore? Like, do people care about buying expensive bags anymore? Or like a piece of really expensive laser cut leather, like. So
Or would you do it because it's Cotweiler?
Yeah, or maybe they'll bring a new customer into Mulberry.
So like I know there's a lot of boys who would buy RAF even though it's eye-wateringly expensive.
Yeah.
So it does Cotweiler now like shift up into that section where well, it probably won't be the same kind of price as RAF, but does it shift up into that section now where you're like, okay, fine, I might not be able to buy a full tracksuit anymore, but maybe I'll save up and get that really cool bag with the hiking clips. What do you think about the sell factor?
I mean, I'm still kind of restlessly waiting for this kind of hype train to kind of die down. I truly believe that things need to take a full turn and kids need to come back to like what it was like when I was 16 and I was just like discovering Dries, Raf, Margiela all for the first time. And just 60, yeah. My first job in the store up in Birmingham. So discovering those brands and actually just like parting hard cash with that, like saving up, knowing what it felt like to buy quality.
Yeah.
Now we're not, kids aren't buying quality.
Yeah, that's true. It's just it's names. Mostly.
It's just names, and like whoever it's been shot on, and it's just getting tiring.
Well, that's something about this. I mean, there's definitely some beautiful fabrics. That knitted silver thing was magical. I mean, I think if they can introduce that to an audience, just quality of materials and experimentation, and that's great because it's not just names slapped.
And that's the education you want. Everyone talks about educating customers, but that's what you want. You want kids to be kind of feeling the product, kind of getting stuck in. And even if they bought one piece from them for the season, they're investing. And I don't know, they're just kind of, there was like, at the show last night, there was 2 kids sat next to me. I don't know who, I think they were like 16 and 17.
How'd you get in here?
I was like, but they were chatting about school and they were chatting about whatever, and then they were chatting about the shows. The one kid had like a little mini DV camera and he put it on night mode and he was like filming the show.
Amazing.
I was just like obsessed by him. I was like, I wanted to introduce myself, take him under the wing, like, no, come on board, but like...
Pick his brain a little bit.
Yeah, I was like, they're into it, they're talking about it, and they were like talking about kind of Fashion Week and saying how could they get more involved, and they were talking about the soundtracks in the shows they'd seen, and they were like, oh, we could do sound, maybe we'll try and do that next season. It was so refreshing to see like...
That's amazing.
That recruitment of the youth, like the right youth, and they were like... just some kids from up north who were down for the day, and I want to see more of that. That's the customers that I want to be kind of grabbing, and I think these guys have got the potential to get that in, because it's not too far advanced that they can't get into it.
Yeah.
So.
What do you think on first impression today?
I like it. I can see a lot of like my youth in it. Like, I grew up in a council estate. My dad is like half Caribbean, so I can see kind of things that he would wear, and then see things I would see in the council estate I'd live in. Feels kind of like ethnic as well as very British at the same time. I don't know. I'm a bit confused about where they want to go, what their aspirations are, if they're selling an idea, if they're selling a product. I'm unsure what the end game for them is. But because there's a lot of brands at the moment that are in the same wheelhouse as Cotweiler, and I think it'll be interesting, like who like has longevity and who will set the tone and like be stand out from that. Like at the moment, you could show me a few of these things and I wouldn't instinctually go, this is Cotweiler. Whereas I think if you did that with, I mean, I go to dance because like that's what I know. Like if you showed me a clip of a Pina Bausch shot, I could tell you that was Pina, I could tell you that was Hofesh, I could tell you this was, and the same with like Rick Owens, and I don't think Cotweiler have that. This is Cotweiler. At the moment, I still feel like they're finding their feet a bit, and I'm just curious to see where their end game is.
They did have that. I think they're just sort of trying to, like, I think 2-3 years ago we would have all said, yes, that's definitely Cotweiler, but now it's sort of, there's that challenge of needing to progress and develop and like do something new, but also keep your core. I don't want to say DNA.
That's going to be the end kind of thing. If we go in the showroom and we'll see whether all this is on show, and they might have done a core range. So, which is what most people do now, having a core classic range of like, all right, so I can at least get that tracksuit in black and navy, and then kind of build a selection around that and have some show pieces in there. So, but I would prefer it if they didn't. If they would just have the balls to just be like, this is it, like, and you have to. Buyers have got to become more reactive now and like taking more. Everyone's got to take more risks because it's so vast, that e-commerce market, and everyone's buying the same brands.
Can you take those risks? That's why I don't know.
I think everyone, everyone's so heavily dependent on a top 10 brand list within their company. That's where they rely on the income.
Yeah, and it's all the same brands in every store.
Always the same brands. So if you can rely on that, then I think people should be taking more risks and should be going, all right, with these smaller brands, let's really represent it to how it could be. But then the only issues you face then with someone like Cotweiler is, can they fulfill the production run in order to produce X, Y, and Z that you bought? And the worst thing is if you go into a showroom, you make an edit like that, and then you get an email after you've just spent an hour in a showroom saying 12 items of that is cancelled, then, it's just a waste of your time. So I think, it's tougher. It's a tougher kind of approach.
I think there's a really big need for them to slightly expand what they do as well, because I think that especially in London, it seems that brands get pigeonholed really fast and then find it really impossible to break out of that. So like, I think like an Astrid is a really good example of someone who hasn't really been able to move beyond being known for just doing basketball clothes in different colours. So like,
That was mean.
well, I think she's a brilliant designer, but that's all she's now known for, and all that anyone wants to go to her for, and all that people will buy from her. And it's like, it's going to be, what colours are you doing the same short and the same sleeveless tank in this season, which has made it really hard for her to grow her business, I think, because how many people are there who are going to want to buy it in a different colour every season? But then on the flip side, you can really risk alienating the people who liked your brand at the beginning if you try and then go, oh no, now we're doing suits. Like if Astrid suddenly said, I'm going to do 3-piece suits, obviously everyone would be like...
If you get to a point, if you're good at something, just stick to that at times. Like, slowly progress. But what I like about certain new brands that are coming on board now that are on my radar, if you will, like, they'll be just doing one thing well. So they'll come in and say, like, we're just doing shirts. We're just a shirt brand. And then they're going to nail doing the best shirts and producing in one of the best factories in Italy, and that's that. The next season they might add a pant, but it will be like them restlessly trying to kind of...
Yeah, I feel like their minds are too inquisitive to be the tracksuit brand. Like, it wouldn't work. Yeah. They're too kind of curious about the world and sort of wanting, it's too artistic to just be like, that is just not that kind of...
So they're just, they can be just kind of keep elevating it that way.
And I think that sportswear bubble is going to burst. Like it's already must be nearly at the cusp of going...
You don't think so?
For me, never, but...
Never.
Not with them, but like, I mean, what kind of sportswear though? Like, I mean, it's just the fact that sportswear's so evident now. Like, last season it was like, you couldn't go in it's like Gucci, Givenchy, and all those brands just landed on the same WSGN page, and we're like, we're going to do pink, green, blue, and we'll do tracksuits. And it was just the same. You go into every showroom and it was just the same regurgitated stuff, and it was like... sportswear is like, and that's the stuff that's selling at the moment, even within these bigger brands. So, but I think...
I don't know, I don't really follow fashion. It's too much, it's too kind of like all-consuming. I worked at Liberty for a bit, and in women's wear, second floor. which was not fun. And yeah, when I first started, they gave me a book of like all the new collections and everything, all the research, and I was like, oh, this is so fascinating, wow, this is so interesting. Then the next season came and it was the same thing again, and I was like, does this happen every time? And they were like, I forgot what my point was. Sorry, what were we talking about?
I think sportswear in general. But you said, it's just interesting that I like that you were quite adamant to say, it's not going to burst in that sense. Because
Yeah, like I went to see Young Lean a little while ago, and they were all like 16 years old. I felt really old. I was like, oh my God, these are all children. And they were just, every single person, they were kind of like Primrose Hill like kids, but all dressed in like sportswear. But they were just so invested in that identity that I felt that was the first time I really felt like a culture that I felt has been missing in a lot of things, and I don't think that will die out for a while.
There's a core of sports, this is where it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, that I mean, I've been into sportswear for 20 years now, and there's a core of it that's kind of fetishistic that's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
but that's
I guess
not
there's
fashion.
two levels. There's like actual sportswear and people who are really interested in on a real level, and then there's like fashion sportswear.
I think that's probably what they're sort of detecting and kind of trying not to get stuck in, trying not to get stuck in the sort of fetishized kind of thing. Where they can still like that, but they don't have to keep, it's not going to keep selling in the way it has been because it's oversaturated.
Yeah, and that really referenced like 90s sportswear thing as well has got to be like, dying.
I'm hoping that's fading out
it's
soon.
It's got to. Like, and again, there's people who are always going to want to wear a zip through from Adidas or whatever, but as a fashion look, it's got to be like nearing its death, hopefully.
But the thing is, you're talking about Young Lean and such. Cotweilers, a lot of musicians have worn Cotweiler, like FKA Twigs, and I think Cotweiler has actually. But when that keeps happening, it's not going anywhere. Personally, if I see Cotweiler in Cotweiler, I'm like, oh, okay, then fashion, sportswear, and sportswear not going anywhere anytime soon.
When I did my show a few months ago, Cotweiler lent me their clothes to use, and because I have dancing and you're moving and you're on stage, you don't want anything that's like restrictive. You want something that's like free and that you can. And I feel like their clothes let you do that. You feel like smart. You feel tailored, but you can breathe, you can move, you can do things. And
is there anything from this that you would want to dance
a few
in?
things.
Let's do some window shopping. What do you fancy? This goes for everyone. Dream outfit. What would you have?
Where is the one? The one with the kind of grey one with the Cotweiler written on. I do like this one as well. What number is that? 3.
These colours are really beautiful.
I actually really liked non-tracksuit stuff. There was a little cropped-ish sort of 4-pocket jacket. That one there.
I love these harnesses as well.
The bag. I thought it was so nice and so not what I'd expect from them, because it was quite neat. And the stuff, the trousers were almost looked like sort of denim jeans, but were actually kind of panelled in leather. I thought were really interesting as well. Just because it so wasn't what you expected from them as a brand.
That one on the far right there, that looks very kind of for the Cotweiler buyer who's not necessarily in it for the concept.
Yeah.
That will sell, I'm sure.
Hoodie.
Those little stripe pockets they've definitely had before.
What is this?
It's called a hand of love, apparently.
They said it was. They love doing like a motif that's kind of half really meaningful and half really like banal. So it's in some ways like ancient symbol of whatever. But equally, you can buy those pendants for like £3 on Camden Market. It's like a total cliche, but it's also actually means something. A bit like that lizard last season.
There's the wheat sheaf and the lizard and the.
Yeah.
It's also this like mixing of nature and tech, which they always do.
It's quite shamanic, and it's sort of fitted with the whole kind of like ritual spelunking.
The music was a bit like that as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I saw Palmistry did the music. I heard a bit of it. I thought it was really good.
It was amazing.
Cameron Palmistry,
I love this. This kind of grey and white, the harness. I think that's really cool. I would wear that.
This is lovely.
Can you dance in a harness?
Yes.
I love that white bag. It literally just looks like it's been dipped.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I wish that was readily available to buy.
I think it'll just snap off though.
Yeah, I know.
So
it's more of a mantelpiece item, isn't it?
I was hoping there'd be real stalactites, but I got shown backstage, and it was sadly not real stalactites.
Sort it out, Cotweiler.
That'd be really expensive.
That'd be amazing. Yeah, and the pearlescent's back as well, and these little helmets and trims. Yeah. What does everyone think generally? Good collection? Happy?
I think it was a necessary collection.
Necessary.
I hope that next season they continue to push outside of what we expect from them and keep kind of working in these more luxury elements, which I think is a really interesting thing to do. And as we've said a million times, like slightly distance themselves from just being the tracksuit brand. And I think this is a really interesting start of doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I thought it was a really good move forward for them. I think it would have been really anticlimactic if we'd all gone down to the Natural History Museum in this amazing setting and then it had been like
all grey
20
tracksuits.
exits of grey tracksuits.
Yeah.
I see my dad in this look, and my dad wears the same loafers, the same cut, the same like tight fitting tops with a little. This is
Little beanie as well.
Yeah, makes me like it less.
Your dad sounds pretty cool.
He likes wearing tight clothes.
I think naturally that whole, I think I was talking to you about that whole like tight fitting. I think we're going to move away from this whole oversized stuff. That's another thing that has to just kind of.
No.
You'll be in a tight tee next season.
You're going to have to
It's
go
like-
diets.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that more slim fit it's got to come. It's got to move into that. Slim fit and tracksuit doesn't sound wildly appealing, but I think it could be.
It's sort of started happening with, sort of standard Nike tracksuit bottoms have been very slim fit, but it's been driving me crazy for about a year or so. Yeah, just they're all really tapered and really tight.
That's all gone like panelled, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then even the sweatshirts. I mean, I have to buy an XL now in a Nike. Oh, I'm not an XL.
It's definitely happening. I think Liam Hodges' notes yesterday said slimmer tracksuits, slimmer this.
Oh, really?
I mean, the boys said to me pre-show that they were deliberately going skinnier.
Yeah.
Because that whole kind of Vetmont's hoodie, huge drowning in your clothes look has just become such a boring cliche.
Wow.
Sadly.
It's not just skinny though. It's kind of it's sort of more tailored as well.
Yeah, exactly. That tailored approach.
Yeah.
Do we know if the Natural History Museum T-shirt was just from the gift shop, or
I think it was,
Yeah.
It's just a suit.
which I kind of love.
I love that. Yeah.
I was a big fan of the glass
Yeah, I was.
backpack
It's so nice.
Geode thing. There's no picture of it though.
I don't know. Do we have a back view of the glass cabinet on the guy's back? There might be one on Instagram.
It might be in here now.
Do.
I missed the shot.
Rookie mistake.
Did go flying past it.
It was at quite a speed, yeah.
And the little lights as well, I forgot about those.
Yeah.
That was really
nice.
nice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's the backpack.
There it is.
Amazing.
Geode in a, I guess I was thinking it'd be nice to see more show pieces, more kind of, I don't know, I like that because it was completely just for the show and it was weird and interesting and beautiful. And I think like a bit more of that in menswear would be good because like I've seen a few shows and there's nothing that kind of experimental and crazy and weird. This is the sort of,
For sure.
I really love that.
But it
totally
works with
agree.
them. It's not just like a fun piece on the end for
No, it totally
the
works.
show. It's like this. It fits with this whole amazing
I kind
concept.
of like that it was kind of just funny as well. It was like
Yeah.
sort of deflated some of the seriousness of it all. Like, just like, it was just kind of stupid and you're like, yeah, that's kind of like.
What's the least practical backpack?
And his little KY jelly ears looking.
It's back again.
I think it's sad that fashion shows are so fast. There must be like an interesting way that is in between a presentation and a show to showcase work. No, I saw this show with Rosas, Anna Terrace Maker, in London. It was an old one they did in the 80s, but they kind of brought this, I think it was the 80s, they did this piece and the costumes were changing throughout and you weren't sure if it was the lights that were changing because all the costumes were the same, but then the lining would be different, or it was stunning. And I looked at the program afterwards and Dries Van Noten made all the clothes for her.
Amazing.
And it was really, really powerful. And I wish there were more things that were happening that were integrating these different styles with like dance or with music or with, in a way that where you don't sit down for 10 minutes and everyone runs past and then you're like, is that the end?
I guess it's sort of formulaic for a reason. Like there's a lot to get through and a lot to see, and I understand the rationale of it, but I couldn't agree more. It sort of takes away the artfulness of it. And
I think the hard thing is when a bad brand tries to do that kind of a presentation and you think, God, it's just a load of fucking like, it's like, does it need to have like a 20-minute installation performance piece?
Maybe.
You know, people like leaping over each other and like, And sometimes you're like, I just want to see the clothes go past, like there's nothing else. But when with a brand like this, I agree, like you kind of want something that's going to like immerse you in it as much as possible because there's so much intellectual weight behind it. So, I don't know, it's maybe they need to like have to pass an exam before they can do it.
The checklist.
Board of curators.
So to wrap up, what do we want to see from, you mentioned this briefly already, but what do we want to see from Cotweiler for next season?
Baggy clothes.
Baggy clothes.
Monotone colours. Yeah, I don't know if I like the colour palette of this. I think it's really nice, but yeah, I didn't like the season before with the lizards and the greens and I didn't like it.
I have to say that whenever I have bought the brand, I've been more cautious of buying into the print. I kind of do tend to steer away from that. So when the lizard was on there or the wheat flower, and I do tend to, I think if it's embroidered on something that looks a bit more subtle, it's easier to buy into. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily, I don't think they need to do a printed tee. I think they've got enough DNA within the tracksuits, etc., and the hats is quite a statement for them as well. And yeah, I don't know. I think less prints maybe.
Less prints.
Like, or not feeling like that they need to be forced to do something that's commercial. You know, taking a step back from that, not having a price point T-shirt in a collection. Just being able to like going in and your first price point is a tracksuit top or a shirt. And
I really love those tape shirts they did years ago, about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
They were beautiful because they weren't just T-shirts. They were sort of interesting shirts, which they haven't done. Yeah, they did the wheat sheaf embroidery one. That was nice.
Yeah, I just think if it's got a little bit, just that little bit more kind of to it, other than just because again I'm just done with printed tees as well, you know. Kind of.
And a bit more luxe from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't say they need to change the tack. I think what they're doing is totally in the right direction for them. I hope that they will continue to just be a bit more experimental and try things. And like, even if we don't respond to them doing colour or them doing skinny or whatever, like, I think it's really interesting that they throw those things at you and then it sort of sees what sticks. So I hope that's what they continue to do.
Excellent. Right. Well, thank you all for coming in. Should we give them a round of applause?
Sure.
Yeah, why not?